Complete Natural Food Retailer's Workshop with Danny Wells, tape number 6.
Well, yeah, there's two sides of the coin on that, though, is that because we have a natural food store, people will come into your store and put $5 on a charge card and go in and pay cash at the grocery store for the rest of their purchases. So, see, if you want to look at our products like a luxury item, like clothing, well, yes, because that's kind of impulse. Well, I don't need it really, then I don't have enough cash. But everybody has cash for food. That's the way most people shop for food, is with a check or with cash. As I said, until recently when Safeway went into charge cards, but then again, they're the only chain that does, and Safeway isn't even back here. So for most purposes, you're going to have to consider that people pay cash for food. And so they would be going to another store and giving them cash, but charging at your store. Now, we found this not to be a problem at all when we put that up there, that it encouraged people to just put their card away and say, okay, I'll give you cash. Or if it came to be $15, they'll say, okay, well, let's see what else. Okay, I need this too. And give me another item, and it'll make it $22. And that was fine if that's the way they want to handle it. See, that's one of the reasons that you do this, because the banks on smaller purchases, the smaller your purchase and the lower your transaction, the higher they're going to charge you a discount rate. They're going to charge you up to 4%. And they were charging us 3.5%, and by going to the $20 minimum, our minimum sale went up, and then we got down to where they were charging us 2.5%. So it's going to save you both ways by doing that. Yes?
Several supermarket chains, Finance might be one of them particularly, have discovered the online machine where if you give your credit card to the cashier, she runs it through the machine and automatically deducts money from your account while you're at the register.
Mm-hmm.
And the bank, on top of that, charges you a much lower rate because of that quick turnaround time.
Right, yeah.
Like under 2% level.
Correct, yeah, and those are like debit cards rather than really credit cards because it comes right off. Yeah, and the debit cards are a whole different situation because the debit card, for most people, that's just a cash advance. And they're paying for it also to use that card. Consumers have to pay to use it. Well, with a credit card, you go in and charge on a credit card, it's not costing the consumer anything if they pay it off at the end of the month. So the difference to a debit card is when you use that debit card, many times you are paying for that service. And it's costing you to use that debit card. It comes right out of your account that day rather than getting a float.
My bank saying any one of my credit cards associated with that bank has a debit card with no charge.
With no charge. Okay, well, see, they're starting to get more competitive now because, see, most of the times there were charges on those. So it is changing. I mean, we're realizing that the financial market is changing, and all this is saying is maybe this is a little outdated now, but for us it made a big difference in our bottom line because we found that immediately our charge sale average went up and the number of charges went down. We eliminated all those, $4 and $5 charges to go through the paperwork of writing it up and making a copy of it and getting it over to the bank. I mean, that's a lot of extra work, and we're really not in the banking business. That's one of the things. The same thing with having charge accounts in-house. Some stores have charge accounts in-house. I mean, then you're being a bank. I mean, you're allowing the person, instead of spending cash like they do at the grocery stores, to basically float on the money. You have to account for all that, and that is something else that just is going to cost us more in the long run. Price stickers on the bottom of the back. We had this in the slides yesterday. We showed the bright stickers on a product, and we should talk about the reasoning behind that. Is the studies show that as people go through and shop, that if they are attracted to a product, if they get it in their hand, 50% of the time they're going to buy it. There's something about making that a part of their person. They touch it, they've got the product in their hand. Now, if the price is visible to them when they look at the product, they're going to look at the product and then look at the price, and they're going to make a value judgment before they even touch the product. Then, many times they'll look and say, oh, well, I don't need it, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. Especially important with vitamins and body care items. In our store, the policy was you price the product on the bottom or the back of every product in the store, and specifically you look for the UPC code because we're not going to be scanning in our store for quite a while, and so just put it right on the UPC code was where we put it. That way it never defaced the product, we all knew where to find it, and it wasn't right out in front for the customer to see. And we talked yesterday about only 15% of the population shop in natural food stores, and when some of those other 85% come in your store and they do all the time, we don't want to appear to be overpriced. And a guy who's used to walking into a drugstore and seeing, $2.99 for vitamin E, and he comes up to your 1,000 unit all natural E, $29.95. What a ripoff! I can go down to the drugstore and get that for $3. I'm getting out of this place. Well, see, he doesn't know the difference between 1,000 units of natural and 100 milligrams of synthetic, so he just sees prices. So if the prices aren't in front of the consumer, you're going to be able to increase your sales. And if they want to look at the price, they can find the price on the product. Pricing in 5s or 9s. This is just the, yes, sir. Placing of sale stickers, good question. Now that's really actually the opposite. When we have things on sale, we have different price guns, and we actually use an orange day glow price sticker that says regular price and sale price, and we'll put it right on the front because you want people to know that it's $2 off or $3 off or whatever. And so that is the exception to that. Pricing 5s or 9s. This comes from the old grocery industry, that you just basically round up to 5 or 9. If you're figuring something out as a grocery item and it works out to be $1.31, you make it $1.35. And the consumer will not really perceive a price increase difference between you and anybody else when you're within 4 or 5 pennies. In fact, there are some stores I know that round everything up to 9 except for 0 or 1 or 2, and they round that down to 9. Meaning that if something came out to be 142, they'd make it 139. If it worked out to be 133, they'd make it 139. As long as you don't break the dime barrier. And you can be surprised by doing this in a lot of products, you will not perceive it as being any higher than the competition. Someone's not going to drive across town because you have something for 139 and somebody else has it for 136. I mean, that's not perceived as being difference in price to the consumer. Encourage shopping with carts or baskets, especially in small stores. Now, I know the larger stores already have these, but in our 1,000 square foot store, we started with the little carry-on baskets. I found that people would wind up starting to fill those up. In fact, a lot of us don't even use baskets, and what we wind up having is a situation where, and this is something else that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, many of us have our counters so cluttered that we have just a little space here where you could set product on. You've got your cash register and all kinds of stuff all jammed up around it, and you're almost like saying to the consumer, well, we're only going to allow you to buy about 1 square foot of product, because when our counter gets full, I mean, that's pretty much it. And so some of us in small stores without counters or baskets, without baskets or shopping carts, we have a customer comes in, gets the product, and sets it on the counter, right? And then they go walking away in the store, and they start talking with you and things, and then they come over and shop and buy something else and set that on the counter. Another customer comes in, they start talking, and by the time you're, 15 minutes, you got 2 or 3 different piles going from different customers here. And it's like it can get really confusing, and as you get busier, you can find you got to take the time to set that someplace before the other customer gets finished. So we have these baskets, these little baskets, that we have stacked up right near the counter. And as soon as someone started to put something on the counter, we say, well, we have these baskets for you. And so they put it in the basket. And one of the things about this is that the psychology of shopping, if you've got something to put something in, you're going to buy more. When I was in Australia, I was talking to one store owner about this, and I noticed there was a customer that had his arm full of stuff. She just kind of walking through the store like this, and said, go over and get her, a basket. And so he went over and got her this little basket. And she said, oh, no. She said, I'm finished. She said, I'm just going out. I said, well, you look overloaded, so we loaded it in the basket for her. And so she put it all in her basket, and of course her hands were free now. I said, let's keep an eye on her. She bought 4 more items in the store. Just walking out, because now her hand was free to shop, and she had that basket open. In our 1,000 square foot store, after seeing that people were filling up baskets, I went and bought some of these small little mini carts, because a regular grocery cart would be really huge in our store. And I found that people were shopping until someone would shop till that cart was full. They were used to filling up their cart, so this mini cart, really was filling up with food, and we were getting pretty large purchases in that small store. I thought, I'm going to try something. I got rid of the mini carts, and I got the next size up, which was the mini carts, or midi-sized carts. And sure enough, the average sale increased because people were now shopping till the cart was full. Now, if my store was big enough, I would have put the regular big carts in, but it would have felt like you're pulling this cart down this small little store, and it just wouldn't have worked out. But the moral is that you should have something to make people shop. Too many of us have already set up the psychology that I'm just going to come into our store and pick up a few items. And shopping carts and baskets encourage us to do shopping, which is what we want to do, or have them do. Use a coupon redemption service. Again, this may work for larger stores that get in a lot of coupons, but I know that many times we get in coupons and we just wind up throwing them away because we don't take the time to try to get a quarterback by putting it in an envelope and mailing it back to the distributor. There are several of them around. This is one we use. It's an 800 number here. And the plan, they have several plans, but the plan we like is you send them all your coupons, and when you get $100 worth face value, they send you a check for $100. Any coupon you want, you send them. You just send them all to them. And I think they have a minimum, like you have to have at least $20 at a time. So you save them up till you get $20 in an envelope and then mail it down to them, and they open an account for you. And they make their money on a handling fee, because each coupon says they'll pay you 7 cents handling fee to get the 25 cents back. So it's a kind of a nifty way of saving time without having to deal with all those coupons individually. I'm not going to be going through each one of these. In the workbook, you have one page of 26 items. But we think it's very important for you to consider when you're choosing your main distributor certain things. Like we talked about consolidating orders, so that means your main distributor is going to become very important. The main man, or the main lady, whoever owns it, that you're going to be using. And this is not to say that we're against, using other distributors and smaller distributors, because you're going to need backup distributors when they're out of stock. But what we are trying to do is saying, instead of going through 5 or 10 or 18 distributors, let's try to get this down to as small a number as possible. And when you're deciding who you're going to put, all your eggs in, basically what we do, because we want to get the best discount possible, there's a lot of things you want to ask them, like percentages of out of stock is number one. The number one purpose of a distributor is to deliver the product to you when you need it. Price is secondary. And many times we wind up going with a distributor that offers us a little bit better bargain or price, but when we order it, we never get it in. I mean, they've got an out of stock of 15 or 20%. And so that's not going to help us at all, because we can't sell a product that we don't have in the store. I don't care what the discount is. And I'd rather have 30% of a sale of a product I can give somebody rather than 40% of no sale at all. What percentage are manufacturer out of stock? Just to give you an idea of how good your distributor really is. And these are numbers that they live by every day. You can call the distributor and ask them that right now. What's your current out of stock level? What's your current manufacturer out of stock level? In fact, when we're negotiating with new stores to open, and we've got 2 or 3 distributors that are kind of courting us, we'll ask them these questions to find out how good of a job are they doing. Do they offer the computer ordering? Do they charge for that? What kind of volume are you going to give us? How do we discount? How do we get that discount? Is it a check? Is it a rebate? Do we get the check at the end of the year? Do we get it off the invoice? Are there any purchases excluded? Some people offer a big discount, but they say, well, not dairy, not bulk, not this, not that, and then there's nothing left for you for a discount except for maybe some tea. As your volume increases, will you qualify for higher discounts? A lot of times, distributors, it's kind of like buying a car. They really, there's a price, and then there's another price, and then there's another price, and it really depends on how many questions you ask. Some distributors have it all written out in a booklet for you. Others of them, they just kind of give you as much information or as much service information or as much discount information as you're going to ask for. So, will they re-merchandise the store for you? Will they give you self-tags? Many of them, if you're right now considering consolidating, this is a time when you have a lot of bargaining power and negotiating power. And we've done this a lot with stores, saying, look, I'm either going to go with this distributor as my main one or this. I'm going to consolidate all my orders. And to do this, you're going to be getting, I added up all my purchases here and found that instead of now doing, $1,000 a week from you, I can be doing $4,000 a week from you. And so for that, what will you do? And they'll start making promises. We'll come in and merchandise your store. We'll reset your store for you. We'll give you velocity reports. We'll give you this. Well, all those things were available, and we just never asked before. Here are another, basically 14 through 26 of the same type of questions that you can ask them. Split cases. Do they split case? What's their split case charge? See, a lot of us wind up going with a distributor that is case only, and he of course has a little bit better discount, but when you have to wind up ordering cases instead of eaches, your inventory control problem is just exaggerated. And I'll have to say, our each ordering was still, even at the volume we're doing at 1.5 million, our each ordering was very, very high. We did a lot of each ordering, because if my inventory control formula showed that I only needed 4 of a product, I'm not going to order 12. And even though one other distributor said, well, I'm going to give you 10% off by getting that case, if you consolidate your orders, you're going to qualify for even a higher discount on all your products, and then you're not going around worrying about negotiating individual separate deals. So these are all of the things that you can be asking your distributor. Velocity reports, if you haven't seen them, will look something like this. Basically, your top selling items by category. And a typical one, like for cereal, this particular one is a couple of years old, but still, it'll tell you in January of '89, the number one selling cereal was Health Valley Oat Bran Flakes and Oat Bran, and then Oat Bran O's, and it went on all the way down through 100. Well, what you do with these velocity reports is we would get them once a quarter, and we'd look and say, okay, we'd maybe take the top 20, and we'd say, are there any of the top 20 sellers that we don't carry? If there were things in here, sometimes in the top 10, there'd be a product like number 8, and think, gosh, I don't even carry that product, and it's a number 8 seller. I think I ought to get the product in. And then there'd be maybe down number 100 would be a product I've been selling that I'm not selling much anyway, so I would use this to fine-tune my mix in each category, and these they usually supply for free. The other nice thing about consolidating going for one distributor, then they can give you your own personal velocity report. And what they will send you is this happens to be a large store in Southern California, so the purchases are quite large, you can see, but still, smaller stores can get these also. We did in our store. By getting the velocity report, let us know what in our particular categories of cereals or juices or whatever, these have juices and cereals, they'll let us know the total units that we ordered, ranking them by category, ranking them by discount, by gross profit margin, so we could find out what our best sellers were. Without having to get our own computers, without having to do our own tracking, it was being done for us. Now, we talked about it being a real trendy industry, and let me just give you an example of this. is, we've been in the industry for quite a while, but go to 1986, and here's a velocity report from a major distributor, and 8 out of 50 of the top items are food, 32 out of 50 are supplements. These are the top selling items, velocity report by one distributor. This is 1988. 2 years later, 54 out of 54 are all food. And we say that the trends, there it is right before our eyes. Within 2 years, we went from 32 out of 50 supplements down to 0 out of 54 supplements in the top 54 selling velocity items in the industry. And maybe your store runs differently, but it's an idea to see that the trend is working that way. Another way that you can help to increase your bottom line is to be specific in setting your rules on your return policy and return checks. One of the things that we believe very strongly is that you ought to guarantee everything in this industry. We feel this industry ought to have a 100% guarantee policy. The customer should feel comfortable about trying anything in our stores, and if for any reason they don't like it, they should be able to bring it back in the store. And we have that policy stated in our store. We say we'll refund anything with a receipt, because it's very common for people to steal a product and want to come back and get a refund. And so they wind up stealing it from you at wholesale, and then you buy it back at retail. Real good deal for you. And so without a receipt, then you don't take that. Obviously, if it's a real good customer, they've come in all the time, you know that they probably bought the product. If they don't have a receipt, we take it back. We also will say within 14 days, and we'll stick pretty close to that by saying, look, we want to carry and sell fresh quality merchandise. And we don't mind taking this back, but how would you feel about buying a product that sat in somebody's shelf at home for 4 or 5 or 6 months, and they brought it back and then you bought it? So as long as you make the decision within a couple weeks that you want or don't want this product, that's fine. Now, obviously, if it's a bad product, anything wrong with it, they can bring it back at any time. I mean, if they bring it back and it's got mold growing out of it or there's some defect with the product, you take it back, no questions asked. But there is a difference between a good product and a bad customer. Meaning that how many times you give this customer a product, they keep bringing them back. And there are some customers that will just take advantage of that. And sometimes you actually can get rid of a customer. I mean, it actually is not a bad idea to lose a customer like that. We only had it happen once. We're finally after someone who actually was bringing back more than they ever bought in our store. They came in one time and said, this is pretty much it. I mean, they would open up every box of cereal, spread it all out. If there's one little speck in there, they'd bring back the whole box saying, we found this speck in this cereal. They'd open everything up, take everything out, all the teas, they'd spread it all out. This doesn't look like a piece of peppermint. Everything else is like peppermint. This doesn't, so they'd bring it back. They're really fanatical. So we finally said, that we just can no longer pay for your experimentation and all this stuff you're going through. I said, it's just getting to be really ridiculous. And they said, well, we just will never shop in the store again. I remember looking at my brother, and I said, promise? And so, occasionally someone will take advantage of that, and you have to do something like that. But for the most part, people are very honest, and if we can make them feel comfortable about buying products in our store, we're going to have them try more of these, to them, obscure products. Another thing that we have found, if you do happen to have a lot of trouble with returns, that if you clear returns through one person, any questionable return, meaning someone brings back, a bottle of supplements and there's 3 left, and they go, this didn't agree with me. Well, 97 seemed to agree with them, but the last 3 for some reason didn't. If you bring that back, have one person in the store that clears questionable returns, because it's common for some people in a big store to bring something back to one clerk and then a week later bring something back to another, and they kind of go through 5 or 6 different people because they don't, they know if they go back to the same person, they can remember that they were the one that brought something back next week or the last week. Return checks. I don't know if you have any problem with checks coming back in your store, but there is a bad check writing profile. This comes from the FBI nationwide. The profile is, and this is not a sexist remark, this is just their way of the conclusions they've come to, that the average bad check writer is a single female under the age of 30 with a check number under 200. Now, after I found this out, I went back because we saved all of our bad checks, and over 90% of our checks that we received that were bad fell in this category. Single female, under 30 years of age, check number under 200. That will come into a city, open up a checking account, write checks from 100 up to 200, and then leave the city and bounce all the checks. Now, it doesn't mean that I've never had a married couple bounce a check on me or a single male, but the proportions are there. So we suggest getting a valid driver's license and also a Master and Visa, because Master and Visa are harder to get than other types of charge cards. You can go in department stores, and their test for charge cards is like, hold a mirror up, and if you're breathing, then you can get a charge card in pennies. Well, Master and Visa are harder to get. And so, now some people are saying, it's against the law, you can't, request these, or I shouldn't say you don't have to demand these. And it's true, you don't have, the law says that somebody doesn't have to give that to you if you don't want to. But most people, when trying to establish credit, are happy to put the card up there and have it happen.
Most states have laws dealing with bad checks, requiring a written notice to the offending person. One retailer in the antique business told me about a very unusual technique. He would write a letter to the person who gave him the bad check, telling him if you don't make this good within a week of putting it in the window of the store. And he had a list in the window of the store, taped up there, of everybody who gave him a bad check. Very effective.
Yeah, I did that the second year I was in business. The third year I didn't. I stopped doing that. There's something I had a problem with that, posting that kind of stuff. But we did exactly the same thing. In 1971 through 72, we had this little thing we called the Lonely Hearts Club. And we had a sign, Lonely Hearts Club, and we stacked up any bad check that we got out there in the front. But we found the thing with bad checks is that, you put a lot of negative energy into getting back negative energy and trying to collect on somebody. I mean, the thing you do is you try to get a phone number, you get a phone number on the check, and don't be afraid to say no, too. If someone comes in, they've got check number 102, and they don't have any other type of ID, we'll say, I'm sorry, it's not sufficient. I mean, they'll pay cash someplace else because other people won't take the check. But generally, if you're just a little, cautious about this and post a sign, this has really helped us. Once we post a sign, it's a $15 return check fee. It really had people become more accountable for their own banking. I mean, see, our purpose as a merchant, a lot of us, we feel we almost apologize for being in business. We try to be so accommodating that if the check bounces and we go through the time of calling the customer and then calling them again and then they call us back and then we miss them and it goes back and forth trying to get them to come in and collect on this $30 check and then finally they pay it. Well, you've gone through all that effort and that's not your job. I mean, your job is really to sell natural foods, and their job is to control their finances. And so by putting that up there, that means, if you can't control your finances, it's going to cost you $15 because it takes us time in clerks and telephone calls and follow-up, going back and forth to the bank. And so once we did that, we found that our bad checks, because there's the collectible and uncollectible. And a lot of the hassle and time is really the collectible ones. It's really a customer that's going to still have money, but the time they wrote the check, they just didn't have it that time. And this really dropped that tremendously. Is there another question on that? Okay. Also, in the set of your store, when you're setting your merchandise out, we've had changes now in the way we're setting the store, especially smaller vitamin-oriented stores. We're finding this. I'll go into a vitamin-oriented store and find that if we move the vitamins from the front of the store to the sides or the back a little bit and bring food up and snack items, they'll increase their impulse sales dramatically because vitamins aren't impulse. And we've done this time and time again where somebody comes in and they have all their foods, their little smattering of foods in the back somewhere in the corner, and they never sell that well because people aren't enticed to buy those. And how they ever get back there because they have the vitamins they need right in front of the store. So when we're setting stores now, we are trying to take the mainstream, what we call user-friendly products. Everybody, as we said, will buy a breakfast cereal or certain chips, cookies, juices, things like that. So if we can bring those up to the front of the store, the user-friendly items, we're going to, for one, attract people who are not familiar with natural food products. And number two, when they come in for the vitamins, they're going to find the vitamins. They're going to go to any part in the store to get those. They're going to be forced to walk by these foods, and you can pick up other sales. And the last section of bottom line boosters is giving away the store. This is the part where a lot of us kind of apologize for being in business. We should know what it costs us to give away discounts. I personally don't believe in discounting unless we're giving an individual product discounts. Individual promotions, yes, but as far as different types of blanket discounts, we wind up giving away the store. And we talked a little yesterday about and let's put it for a grocery item or a food item in our store. A grocery item that sells for $1 costs us 66 cents. And so we have a gross profit margin of 33 cents on that. Our fixed overhead cost, if we're doing a really good job, is 25%, but in many stores it's 30%, but we'll even say you're doing a good job at 25%. That leaves you 8% left if you're doing a real good job profit. That's your entire profit. Anytime you give away more than 8%, you're giving away basically the profit on that product. So we should know that. Now, for instance, our employee discount in our store is that you have 10% off on food and 20% off on everything else in the store. The reason is we show them that this isn't our cost. This here is not our cost on this product. Since we have our overhead here, this is not our cost, 66 cents here. Our real cost is 66 plus 25. Because we have the store, we have the overhead operating cost. If we didn't have the store here, we couldn't bring the product in at wholesale. So too many of us are just looking at the wholesale cost of the product without incorporating in the overhead costs. So our true cost of the products is both. Meaning that for us to give the product to you at cost, we're going to give you 8% off. So if we give you 10%, we're really giving you 2% under cost. And with supplements, since this works out to be essentially $1 and say 60 and 40, 25, and then you have 15% left for most of your supplements. If you're making 50%, it would be higher, but for your body care and many of your supplements, you'll wind up with a 40% gross profit margin. That means we'll even give you another, 5% off of that. So that's the way we handle our discounts. You can handle them any way you want, but when you start getting into straight line discounts or charge accounts or senior citizen discounts, you start giving away the store. Free food is another thing. When you're a smaller store, you might have a juice bar or lunch counter and say, just help yourself to a glass of juice or a sandwich and it's all included. But you start adding these things up, and a $3 or $4 sandwich and a couple glasses of juice and a snack that can be $7 per person times 7 employees, at the end of the year you've given away about $8,000. And so you start analyzing bottom line figures, and people say, well, I wonder why I make a lot of money. Well, you start adding up these just pennies. Charge accounts are another thing. I don't know how many of you have a charge accounts, but then again, we spend a lot of time trying to collect on these things. So we used to have charge accounts, we got rid of them. It's people can charge someplace else. They can use a MasterCard or Visa. But we have to find out, calling them at the end of the month and asking them to pay on their account, and we're floated it, then we're becoming a bank. And we don't have the interest to become a bank. Senior citizen discounts. When I first opened my store, we opened our store in a retirement area. It was right adjacent to a very large retirement community. And we had been open, I guess, not that many months, and I remember 2 gentlemen came up to the counter to check out, and they both had their stacks of merchandise to check out, and I was ringing up one man, and I said, that'll be $24 or something, and he says, do I get a senior citizen discount? And the other man, before I can even say anything, says, I object to that. They were both senior citizens, and he looked at me and he says, do you have a family? And I said, yes, I do. He says, how many children do you have? I said, well, we have 5. And he said, he pointed to this other guy, and he says, do you have a family? I said, yes. He said, how many children? He said, well, I have 3. And he says, are all your children home? Yeah, they're all home. He says, what about your children? No, they're all gone and married. And he says to me, are you working? I said, I'm behind the counter, right? I work all the time. He pointed to him, are you working? No, I'm retired. And the guy said, my point exactly. Here this guy is trying to make a living, and here we are living off our investments, retired, living off the fat of the land, and you want to take 10% away from this guy. He says, I'm against it. I had to agree with the guy. I thought, can I hire you and just have you right here to run through that spiel every time a senior citizen comes in and wants 10% off? After he said that, I had to think about it. Most of the people that came in and asked for a senior citizen discount drove in a Mercedes, BMW, and did not need it. And so our policy in our store, when somebody asked for one, I would say, if you are on a fixed income, if you are in the financial situation where you really have difficulty in paying for these foods, then we will give you a discount. And no one ever asked for one after. No one would ever say, yes, if someone really was out there, I'd give it to them. But in our particular community, it was a rich retired area. Now, maybe you may be in an area that isn't a rich retired. There are people that are on fixed incomes, and you may want to make a decision there on that. But I don't think that we should be subsidizing some people on that, and you can handle it any way that you want, but that's the way that we did, and that's how we got out of giving away a blanket 10% discount just because we're in business. Correct. And that's, my purpose here in a business seminar is to teach you how to run a good business. There are people that give away the store. That's what they do. And that's, some co-ops are set up that way. And I have co-ops hire me all the time to try to straighten them out. And I'm saying that the reason that you're all quote screwed up is that you're giving away the store. You have these loose discount structures. Everybody gets a discount, and you have people stealing you blind because it's such a loose situation here. If you run it like a business, you have to realize we don't have much profit. In food, we have 8% profit to deal with. And anytime we give away more than 8%, we are giving away the store. And we think nothing to give away a 10% discount. And we just can't do it. The margins are not there. And I don't know how many times we have to kind of, put this in black and white for people to see it. And then once they do see that, no wonder my bottom line isn't where it should be. No wonder I only have a 3% or 4% bottom line, because I'm giving you 10% discount away. I've got members that I'm giving discounts away. People come in, and I've got bodybuilders that come from the gym. I said, sure, we'll give you 15% off on all the products because we make 40%. Well, we don't. We're making 15% on our bodybuilding products, and we get 15% off. You're giving it a cost. You're giving it to them. You're doing all the work for nothing. So the only time that this will change is when you are buying volume discounts and you're getting things at 15% off of wholesale. And if you can get to that kind of volume and you have your prices marked up at full retail, then you can start doing this type of discounting and survive. But there's a better way to do it, and we'll talk about that next. Yeah.
Okay, what we do in our store is we eliminate the discount except for non-retail supplements. We give them a 10% discount. That way they feel that they're getting something and we're not really losing any money.
Okay, there's one way of doing it. I'll tell you another way that some stores have done it that have a senior citizen discount. They pick the slowest day of the week, and that becomes senior citizen discount day. But if you already have it, you want to get rid of it, instead of offering a 10% all 7 days of the week or 6 days of the week, you find out Tuesday is my slowest day. Tuesday is senior citizen day. You come in on Tuesday and you're a senior citizen and you get 10% off. I had one store that kind of weaned themselves. They went to 3 days a week, then they went to 1 day a week, and then they went to senior citizen hour. It was like, on Tuesday at 3 o'clock to 4, come in for your 10% discount. But they were able to kind of wean them off of that. So you had a comment. Okay, if you can't hear that, her mentioning was she had a deli and a whole family come in, and one person would be a senior citizen to get the discount, and then the rich relative would pay for it all because she got the discount to buy all this food for everybody in the whole family that came in. So it can be taken, advantages can be taken there. And what we have found, again, bottom line on it is that most of the people who asked for the discount didn't need it. They didn't need it. Did you? Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So and the other is a straight line discount. Question.
Yeah, Danny, I just wanted to ask you, just jumping back to the tree of life of the last report.
Yes.
The trend that it indicated was that supplement by the sales are increasing, groceries are increasing.
Right.
Do you think that's because? Do you think that the velocity, what the velocity report shows, is because grocery sales in the natural food industry are increasing, or because vitamin sales are decreasing?
Okay, it's both. It is both. And now, but if you're looking at proportion, there is much more of an increase in grocery sales than there is a decline in the vitamin sales. A lot, and I don't have statistics on that as far as dollars on that, and I just haven't seen them available. But the percentage of supplements we are selling now, according to the rest of our products, is much lower. But that doesn't mean that we're still not selling the same amount of vitamins. For instance, in our store, we were selling about $500,000 of vitamins in 1985. And now we're probably selling maybe $600,000 of vitamins. So we have increased our vitamin sale, but where our real growth is coming to food. And see, that's where a lot of stores can really make a difference in their volume. And in fact, in the events workshop, we outlined 3 different stores and how they changed and taking into consideration what they've learned in the workshops. We show how one store, just by bringing in all this food, and they already had the vitamin sales. They were already doing $500,000 a year in vitamins. They were able in 2 years to double their sales, and it was already selling food now because the people were coming in the store already to buy vitamins. So a lot of it isn't that we haven't lost all these vitamin sales, it's just the food has taken over and grown tremendously. But still, we are selling less vitamins generally than we were. Specifically, the A, B, C's, E's, those types. The sports nutrition obviously haven't. If it were not for the sports nutrition, we would be really in poor shape as far as vitamin sales, because those have really increased dramatically our sales. Food stamps? Well, food stamps really isn't discount. You don't pay for that. Oh yeah, food stamps is just like cash. To you, they go in and give you the food stamps. And if you get for $1 worth of food stamps, you go to the bank and you get $1 back. If you want to go in the food stamp program, it takes you a little bit of paperwork and things to do it. If it's an area where you have a lot of requests for it, you may want to consider it. But it doesn't cost you anything but time. It's just an accounting thing. But you get $1 for $1. There's no doubt about it. You get $1 for $1. Straight line discounts was the other one we wanted to talk about, and this is where you come in and you say, okay, all Cal's vitamins 20% off, or all Twin Lab 20% off, and you get these straight line discounts. Another area we give away the store, because see, most people are only price conscious of certain items they're going to be buying. For instance, vitamin C is price conscious, and the calcium is price sensitive, I should say. People are price conscious on the item. But you have someone coming in for B1, that's not a price sensitive item, and so there's no need for us to give straight line discounts away. It is much better for us to give deeper discounts on specific products rather than straight line discounting. And too many of us in the business, we do this. We wind up thinking we're delivering this great deal. You know, we think we're delivering this great deal where the customer thinks they're getting a great deal, and if we start looking at it, you know, the deal just isn't there. You know, it's like the little boy who wanted to sell his dog because the dog was giving him problems, and so the dad comes home one day and sees a sign on his lawn, and it says, "For sale dog, 25 cents." And so he asked his son, "Well, you know, how'd you do on selling your dog?" "Well, nobody wanted to buy it." He says, "Well, you know, maybe you ought to put a little more value in the dog, because if somebody's going to go buy and say, so it's fine for a dog 25 cents, they're not going to pay that because the dog doesn't think something wrong with it." So the next day, he's leaving for work and he sees a sign on the lawn, "Dog for sale, $5,000. And he comes back from work that day. He says, "Well, how'd you do, you know, selling your dog?" He says, "Great, Dad, I got two $2,500 cats for it." In the long run, we're not fooling anybody. You know, we only have 15% to work with on our supplements, and if we're giving away 10% of that in a straight line, it's basically trading $5,000 dogs for $2,500 cats. We still got a problem. Commandment number 4, thou shalt compete. Once upon a time in this industry, there was no granola. I don't know if any of you remember back to those days when there was no granola in the industry. We had 2 breakfast cereals in the industry in those days, Dr. Jackson's Meal and Red River cereal. And they both tasted lousy, and the boxes looked lousy, and they were awful products. In fact, Dr. Jackson's Meal was one of the worst packaged products I ever saw. It was a mustard-colored box, and it had a black and white picture of Dr. Jackson right in the front. And this was a guy that must have been, I don't know, 90 years old, and had a beard down to here and hardly any hair, and he didn't look the picture of health. But his picture was plastered, black and white picture in the middle of this box, Dr. Jackson's Meal. I remember one day, in those days, and this was in the early 60s, our distributor would come in, their sales rep would come in every week and take the order for you. There was no such thing of taking your own order. I mean, this is in the days of real service in the health food industry. And so like our K&L or Landstrom or Nature's Best, actually Nature's Best wasn't even in business then. It was then K&L or Landstrom in California. And I remember our Landstrom rep came in and he had a little pad, and we'd say, "I'd like to have, 3 Dr. Jackson's, I'd like to have 2 Swiss Crisp, I'd like to have 3 Calvalax." Things all we had was laxatives in those days for some reason. But anyway, he'd write them down manually, what your order, and then he'd take it back to the distributor, and then they'd say ship it out, in a couple days. And that's the way you got your order every week. Well, one time I remember we thought we'd play a little joke on this guy, and as our salesman was coming in, after we put our orders together, we would go back and have the returns, and he would write up the returns and what the problem was. So we said, "We want to return this Dr. Jackson's Meal." And he said, "Well, why do you want to return it?" And we said, "Wrong picture." I said, "What do you mean, wrong picture?" And he picked up the box, and there was his picture. We cut out the picture of our sales rep out of an industry magazine and superimposed it right over Dr. Jackson's. They looked and see his picture on it. Well, he just kind of about died on that. But and he laughed and everything. And so he wrote it up just as kind of a joke. And we said, "Well, we want to return one case because the whole case was, it was bad." He said, "Yeah, okay." Well, he didn't know, but we took the whole case, and there was an industry article about our distributor and how they went into a new facility, and there's pictures of everybody that worked for there in the magazine. So we cut out a picture of the CEO and the secretary and the vice presidents and all the sales reps and put them on every one of those boxes. And so that when it came back to the receiving and they were checking back in the returns, and they looked on and said, "Reason for return, wrong picture." And he opened up the case, and there was the president of the company on one box, and there was the vice president of the company on the other box. And so anyway, I remember going into that company and going in their offices, and they each had their own box of Dr. Jackson's Meal sitting on their desk there, So anyway, we have improved since then, and we've had better packaging. But in the mid-60s, Lawson granola came out. And it revolutionized the industry. I mean, Lawson granola became such an overnight success. You can only get it in health food stores. Neil Diamond wrote a song about it, "Crunchy Granola Sweet." I don't know if it made it sell any better, but people came into our stores like crazy. It was just a wave of regular mainstream America coming in for this crunchy granola. After about 4 or 5, 6 years of this tremendous sales, crunchy granola appeared on the shelves of Safeway. You could have taken a knife and just stuck it through the hearts of all of us retailers. "What do you mean?" We went back to the distributors. "This is our product. We are selling this product. You have no right to take it down to, the commercial, regular, grocery store, evil people out there." You got to realize, folks, that we sit here as an industry trying to get people to eat better. Our whole way of life, our whole message is to get people to have a better health through eating better products. And so what the message is that we want you to be really healthy. But we don't want you to be so healthy that you can buy it in the grocery store. And what we have to realize in competing that certain products are going to get so popular in our stores that they're going to go mainstream. They're going to go to the other stores, and when that happens, let them go. That doesn't mean you take them off your shelf. That means just mentally you let them go. You don't try to hold on and say, we have the right to marketing this product. This is ours. We did all the work and put in. We supported you when you were younger and whatever. Because we should actually celebrate when we get products to go mainstream, because then it gets exposure to the mainstream America out there. So one thing in competing is that we can't have this. In business, you're either an actor or you're a reactor. And too many of us are reactors. Instead of being an actor and saying, this is the way I'm going to run my store, this is how we're going to run our business, these are the things we're going to do. Safeway gets in a product, then we react to that. Or our competition does something, then we react to that. And we do our advertising based on what somebody else is doing. And we spend all our time reacting. There's a lot of negative energy here. There's a lot of problems with this. And we should sit here and decide, this is how I'm going to run the shop. Sure, I'm going to keep an eye on the competition. But if a product happens to go over there, I remember one time we had, and I have no ties with any company, and I mention company names just for examples and things. There was one company, and it was the Thompson Vitamin Company. And we used to sell a lot of Thompson vitamins in our store back in the 70s. And I remember they went into Safeway, big displays in the Safeway. And we used to have all of our products in our store were vertically merchandised. So we might have the Schiff products here, the Plus products here. We're going back a few years now. The Thompson products here, American Dietates here. Some of these people are dead now, but anyway, so we had the Thompson lines like this. And when Safeway put the products in, I took, and on the very top shelf, I put Thompson horizontally right across the top shelf. I wasn't going to get rid of it because people wanted it. Thompson rep came in, stepped up to a section, and he kind of looked up and saw his whole line all the way up on the top shelf. And I said, we're going to need to sell the products that are available in our store. I won't discontinue your line, but I'm not going to give it front top billing any longer because I want people to come back into my store. Other people just threw Thompson's out immediately. I mean, it yanked them out. But I mean, we were for years selling Thompson products, so we're still going to have it. People coming in, we're going to give them a product when they ask for it because we were building our reputation selling all these products before. But you can move them around and market in your store, still have the product, but not give it front billing, and be able to still carry the product if you have to. The way you can compete in most any level with a larger store is with variable pricing because it allows you to achieve a lower price image without going discount. And this is a very important principle here because this is where a lot of us make mistakes, is that we give away big chunks of it in discounting several big areas. There are only so many items in your store that are price sensitive that people know the price of. For instance, if you go in and people want to buy dairy products, everybody knows the price of milk, but nobody knows the price of ricotta cheese. So you're making lower margin on your milk, but your ricotta cheese you're making your full pop on. Basically, you go through every section of your store, you do the same thing. I mean, canola oil and safflower oil are price sensitive, but nothing else, none of the other oils are price sensitive. So you can get peanut oil and sesame seed oil and sell a quart of those, and no one's going to know what the price of that is. So you don't discount those down. And so when you do start getting higher margins, instead of giving away all the oils at 10 or 15% off, you just pick key items out. Yes, sir?
How do you determine, how do you find out what items are price sensitive?
Okay, good question. Now what we did to do that is we found out where the people were shopping around us. Now most of the customers, we know for a fact that the average natural food customer shops in 2.3 health food stores regularly. I don't know who has the 0.3 health food store out there, but that's the way they regularly shop, and one is going to be in their main store. We also know that the average person won't drive more than 8 to 10 minutes away to shop. So if you go within an 8 to 10 minute drive line, you're going to basically find your competition as far as the other health food stores, the grocery stores, and any drugstores. So we went into the drugstores, found out their prices on vitamin C, E, calcium, things like that. We went into the grocery stores and found out what of our products are they carrying. Now, it used to be at Safeway, they came in with huge sections in their stores. And they had $40,000 sections in their stores. And now they have their usual standard 8-foot wide, 8 shelves high. And they just cherry pick. For instance, they carry Mill Creek Keratin shampoo. They don't carry any of the rest of the Mill Creek shampoos, not the aloe vera, the jojoba, the henna, any of those. And I found their Mill Creek shampoo was like 80 cents cheaper than mine. Okay, I took the Keratin shampoo and lowered that so it competed with them. The rest of the shampoos in the line I got full pop on. I didn't have to reduce all those because they weren't carrying all of those. So I found that those were the items that were priced that other people could see. And number two, I went to velocity reports and found out what are the top selling items here. If I know they're selling in the whole area for the distributor, these are very hot items. There are a lot of them selling, so those items that are selling faster are more price sensitive because people are buying them more often.
This concludes the program on this tape. The workshop continues on tape number 7.